We are 4AR people, and we have a great podcast ahead. Stay tuned.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the 4AR People podcast. We're here with Aaliyah and Sam, and we also have a very special guest that Sam is going to introduce for us, and we're super excited about.
Yes, we are joined today by Representative Tippi McCullough, who is serving her third term in the Arkansas House of Representatives, representing District 74. She also serves on a number of committees throughout the legislature and is a longtime educator here in Little Rock, as well as being involved in a number of professional educational associations throughout her career. She's been awarded the ACLU Champion of Liberty, Person of the Year by Arkansas Times, the Arkansas Young Democrats a Lifetime Young Democrat Award, and the Arkansas Times runner-up for Best Little Rocker. And importantly for this Pride-themed podcast episode, she is also the first openly LGBTQ plus person to serve as House Minority Leader in the state of Arkansas. So welcome to the podcast, Representative McCullough.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we want to start in kind of unfortunately, a dark place, because this morning KARK reported that Arkansas is now the worst state in the United States for LGBTQ plus equality. Our laws that are attacking LGBTQ equality are sometimes modeled after some of these other laws, like Florida's. What about Arkansas do you think makes it so especially hostile to equal rights for queer folks?
Yeah, it's been a weird progression actually. For a little while, it got better in Arkansas and Little Rock, and really across the country when we, when gay marriage became legal, all of those kinds of things started happening. So you kind of had a little period. My first session in the legislature really wasn't around these cultural issues. We really didn't have this kind of a thing happening. And that was my first session was 2019. After 2019, it just went crazy after that. The last couple of sessions in 21 and 23 have just been the worst. They've been terrible in every way. I think the Republicans have probably found something that they can latch onto to really dig at not just this minority that has so few people that can fight, especially so many of the laws are attacking trans people. And so that's really a minority of a minority when you're talking about the LGBTQ community. And it's an easy community to attack because for several reasons, because it is such a small minority. The other part of it is it's so misunderstood. Most people probably know someone who's LGBTQ. They're more likely to know someone who's probably gay or lesbian, bisexual even, may not know someone who's trans, may not have anybody in their family that is. And so that's just been a really easy group to attack. And the Republicans have just found a way to really make that work for them. And I think to try to distract us in some ways, but the Democrats are not going to be distracted. We're going to protect people and we're going to speak out for people when they need to be spoken out for and helped and all that kind of stuff. But it's just been something that they've latched onto, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And heard somebody say the other day, well, surely there won't be any more bad laws this next session because they've already happened. And I'm like, you have no idea what can still happen. And I'm not surprised to hear that KARK reported that. I'm sad to hear that. But, another thing is that I think you feel it less deeply if you live in Little Rock or you live in Fayetteville or you live in one of the bigger cities. I think what's really tough for the LGBTQ communities when you live in rural areas where it's just there's a whole different kind of tone often in those areas anyway, and people may not be as may not have as much exposure to the community as we do in a bigger city like Little Rock.
Yeah, I was thinking too, we have so many colleges that are out in more rural areas, and Gen Z and upcoming Gen Alpha tend to be more queer friendly, and I'm wondering if we'll start to kind of see that demographic effect for students that just don't want to come here for school because it is so hostile.
The kids that we do have, the students we do have at our colleges here, or graduating from high school, or either going out of state to college and maybe not coming home, or they're graduating from college and leaving Arkansas to live in a state that is more open and welcoming and has more rights.
And you mentioned that a lot of these attacks are on the trans community. And like Sam said, Arkansas is one of the states leading the nation in anti-LGBTQ legislation. And Governor Sanders has used a good portion of her term to actively attack transgender people. And even before her, Governor Asa Hutchinson. So I wanted to talk about the Given Name Act for starters, and how that says that school officials cannot be required to call a student by their preferred pronouns or name that does not match the birth certificate without parental consent. And as an educator yourself, what do you think this actually accomplishes? Like, what is the governor seeking to do with legislation like this?
Yeah, and this is a scary thing to me. I think that our high schools, all the way down to our elementaries, our elementaries, middle schools, junior highs, high schools, all the way up into higher education, these laws are being made, also in libraries, to really stifle and censor what teachers can talk about, what bathrooms you can use, just so attacking so many different areas. As a teacher, I think it's always been hard to be a kid in a lot of ways, but it these days we often seem to think, things have gotten better in a lot of ways, but things also are really hard for kids today too. I mean, COVID was really a blow to kids that were in school and in college. And I think we've had a lot of mental health issues arise just from that isolation and the loneliness that came along with a lot of that. It's still tough it's still tough to be a teenager. It's tough to be a kid. And as a teacher, a good teacher is going to be sensitive to the issues that upset kids and that hurt their mental health. We know that kids go through phases, but we also know that kids face very real issues, whether that's hunger, whether that's neglect, abuse of any kind, or if they're just different in any way from just what the majority maybe of the kids seem to be in, whatever way that is. It's just a tough time. So as a teacher, you want to help kids work their way through that. You don't want them to be miserable and not want to be at school and not want to learn. And you want them to be able to have a good educational experience. And as a coach and as a teacher, I can tell you, especially as a coach, whether you coached males or females, coaches always give kids nicknames. When I was at Newport, we had a football coach. He was the best in the world at giving his players nicknames, and they were nicknames that they responded to, that they loved, that they grew to embrace. And so, I mean, that's just part of teaching and coaching, and everything is doing that. And when I called the first day of school, when I called roll, I mean, that was a really important day, because that was the day you had to get the kid's name pronounced correctly. And you had to say, I mean, if they're have some long name, is there something else you go by? Is there a shorter version of your name or whatever? So, I mean, that's just part of school. And I never thought if kid just said, this is what they call me, well, I might have thought it's a middle name. It could be anything. You know how we all have people call us, a lot of people, instead of calling me Tippi, will call me Tip. I mean, is that okay? Or is that wrong? So anyway, it's horrifying. I mean, I'm giving you a long answer to a short question. It's horrifying as a teacher to have your hands tied in that way. And I have said before that someone would probably just have to come into my classroom, because I would probably still call roll, and I'd probably say, what would you like? Is that what you want to be called? Is this what you want? I would probably say that to every kid. Maybe there would be a kid that would turn me in for that or something. I don't know. It could, you can get videoed now at school. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And maybe I would get turned in for that. But I just can't see that I would change what I was doing to make my classroom a safe place for kids to learn. That is one of the most cruel things to do, I think, that there is. And I can't imagine having to email a parent or call a parent and say, is it okay if I call, John, Johnny, or, whatever. I don't know. I think that's one of the worst ones.
like a huge distraction too from your job, which is
Mm-hmm.
teaching, having to jump through all these extra hoops.
That mirrored, like what you just said, mirrored my first thoughts when I heard about it, because I've been out of high school maybe like 5 years now or whatever, but that's always been the norm of like calling roll on the first day and being like, do you go by something else, or what do you want me to call you? Like that's always been the norm. Like I have classmates now who like go by their middle names, and that's like okay, or like go by a nickname. It's just always been the norm.
What does that matter? I mean, who does that hurt? What does that matter? It hurts no one. You know, it hurts
Exactly.
no one. And I catch myself as I was saying that. That's one of the most cruel things. I guess what I'm trying to say is that's just one of the easy things you can do to make a person feel comfortable. So what's wrong with that? You know, it may not be the worst thing. I mean, healthcare is pretty bad when you can't get the healthcare that you need. Driver's license. I mean, there's a multitude of other things that probably maybe are worse, but that's such an easy thing to do. The name thing is just so it's so petty to pick out that name thing, pronoun thing. I mean, it's just, to me, that's just goes beyond, beyond the pale of what you should be doing.
The other piece of legislation that we wanted to talk about was the SAFE Act, Save Adolescents from Experimentation, which would ban gender affirming care for individuals under the age of 18. Was fortunately struck down by a federal judge, but this one was so extreme that Asa Hutchinson vetoed it. Can you give us a little bit of the inside baseball? Is this just another version of the culture war? Why the push for this one? Is there anything else besides that, the continued attempt to fight the culture war? Because they really wanted to get this one passed in the face of pretty stiff opposition from both the governor and some people from their own party.
Yeah, right now in the legislature, we're hearing a lot about parental rights and that parents should have the right to do what they want to with their kids. They should have the right to not let their kids read certain library books, that they should be put in a special place. So everything's about parental rights right now until it comes to the parents of these kids. And with these parents, to me, they should have the right to take their kids to get the medical care that they need. In Arkansas, surgeries weren't being performed too early. Now, I know there's lots of talk now. We continue to get research and new research about puberty blocking methods and maybe how these affect young kids. So there's still lots of things to learn, but here's what's been the problem with the legislatures. Nobody's been willing to really dig into this and learn about it. They just label it as this butchering kids, which isn't happening in Arkansas anyway. Just butchering kids, and then you're doing something to a kid, and then when they get of legal age, they may not be able to reverse it, and they may come out of it on the other side and feel differently. I mean, there's lots of things like that. But if we're going to talk parental rights, let's let their parents have the parental rights to get them the medical care that they need. And this has, I'm like you, the court did stop this, but I want to go back to what you said about Governor Hutchinson, because what changed Governor Hutchinson's mind was some of these kids and their parents coming into his office and sitting down and having a conversation with him. And that made a difference. And that's the problem here with so many people in the legislatures. They've never had a conversation with these kids or their parents. When they come in to testify in committee, that they almost immediately just turn them off. They're looking at their phone, or they're not really truly listening to them. Every once in a while, we'll have a parent that gets through that a little bit. But what made the difference was that personal interaction with Governor Hutchinson and these kids and parents. And I think that's what we have to have. After we voted on one of these terrible LGBTQ bills, no less than 10 legislators would come up to me and say, "Now, Tippi, we love you, but," and then whatever, they had to say about that. And I told one of them one day, I said, "I think you feel something for me. I don't think it's love, at least not right now. But," I said, "let's get together and talk, when this session's over and everything, let's get together and talk." And I've done that, with quite a few of my colleagues. And sometimes you feel like it makes a difference. Sometimes you feel like you kind of hit a wall at some point. Sometimes the wall is religion. Sometimes it's just lack of experience. Questions like, when did you know you were gay? That kind of stuff. Well, I mean, I can answer that, but when did you know you were straight? It's probably about the same time. It's sexuality, so it doesn't really matter which way it is. You know about the time you know. And so I think that's what's so important. And I wonder if Governor Sanders has had those experiences with kids and their parents. I wonder that sometimes, and that's something I'm going to try to explore. Also going to explore, this is my third term now, so I'm in my 6th year. And so I know people a lot better than when I first came in. And I believe that I'm more able to make those connections and talk more openly, and maybe ask them, would they be willing to talk to some folks and everything. So it just helps to have knowledge. I mean, it just helps to have knowledge and to have the experience of actually knowing someone.
I could be misremembering or getting this confused with something that happened in another state, but wasn't there a legislator who voted for the SAFE Act, but was just in tears because they did know a child that was trans and going through that? And I struggle to fathom how you could know someone that needed that kind of healthcare and love them and still vote for a bill like that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I remember that too. And there are also some legislators who have trans kids that are serving right now in different states, and get down there and talk very eloquently and heartfelt and everything. And how could you vote? How could you vote against your colleague who actually has that kid and everything? I asked one of my colleagues one time, I said, what about parental rights? What about these kids' parents? Why don't they have the rights? And they said that they thought that they were abusing their kids, that they thought that that was abuse, and that they were bad parents, basically judging who's a good parent, who's a bad parent. So that has happened some, but there's, I think this is happening all over. And I will tell you, we have had legislators vote for some of this terrible stuff and then go in the bathroom and cry about it. We've had that also. And at first, I mean, maybe I was kind of like, well, at least they're feeling something and everything. Now it just infuriates me. I mean, it just infuriates me. Don't go off and cry like you're the one that's hurt. I mean, you're making the bad vote. And then I've also talked to them, and I've said, they've said, well, we have to vote this way so we can get reelected to come back here and do the good that we do. And I told a couple of the women one time, I said, I like y'all. I really do. But I said, I'd almost rather it be somebody I dislike sitting in that seat, taking that vote. That would be easier for me to swallow than for it to be people that I like making these kinds of votes that I cannot understand.
And I appreciate you talking about like your experience as an openly LGBTQ member of the legislature. Like, I've always wondered, and maybe you can speak a little bit more on this, and I'm straying from the notes, so I apologize. But what is that like? Like during a vote, are people like staring at you? Are they apologizing to you specifically? Like what's that process like?
I don't know. I think everybody gets inured to some of this stuff. It's like it happens so often now. They expect me to walk down there to the well and talk about it and everything. And then it's almost like, well, I'm going to play my role. Y'all play your role. Let's vote. Okay, move on to the next thing. I kind of think that that's how it's gotten to a certain extent. I keep trying to find ways to, I guess, to make them feel bad. I keep trying to, every time it's like, what can I say? And I think Senator Tucker's really good at this over in the Senate. Keep trying to think of the ways, okay, if I've said this and it hasn't affected them, let me say it in a different way. Let me see if I can get through to them. So we've sat up late at night before talking about how miserable we are because we can't sleep because we're so worried about these things that are happening to kids and their parents, and trying to find a way to break through that political wall and that's what it is. You cannot tell me that most of our legislature feels this way. I don't believe it. I think there's quite a few folks that don't care about this stuff. They're fine with it, whatever. It's your life. I mean, that's how it should be, right? They're the party of small government, right? So they say. So I think there's a lot of them, but it's just political. They want to get reelected right now. They're doing what they're told in a lot of ways. That's one thing. Democrats don't always hold together because we think for ourselves and everything, but they'll hold together even thinking that it's maybe not what they would do if they were on their own. And that's what people hate about politics, because, I, as a politician, and I'm not trying to be sanctimonious, but I want to be able to lay my head down at night and go to sleep, and knowing that I didn't do anything that day to hurt people, and instead tried to do things to help. And that's what we're sent there to do, right? We should be sent there to make laws that help people's lives be better, not there to punish certain people. And you fill in the blank. Affirmative action nearly passed. The doing away with the affirmative action stuff nearly passed, and a lot of the Republicans did stand up to that and didn't let that happen. So I do want to say that the first open LGBTQ legislator, Kathy Webb, who's vice mayor of Little Rock right now, she did something amazing years ago when she was serving in this seat that I'm in now. She passed an anti-bullying law. She got it passed, and that anti-bullying law has really done a lot for the LGBTQ community, actually. And so far, that's kind of been left alone. But anyway, that is one big deal that we do have, because our hate crimes bill is terrible. It's terrible. It's not a real hate crimes bill. Of course, we've got religious freedom. We've got the adult drag performance stuff. You name it, we've got it. And then we've never had housing or job protections, here either. So
it's not like renters' rights are great in Arkansas as it stands.
No, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. And then worse if you're LGBTQ. I could go to a doctor and be refused treatment simply for that fact, because of the religious freedom. They could say, I'm sorry, that's my, I don't believe in you religiously. So, or I believe that whatever, I don't even know how they would phrase it, but so I can't treat you. Can you imagine? That's kind of a scary thing to have to worry about, HIV, laws. It just goes on and on. We don't have a ban on conversion therapy, and I keep trying to find out if this is going on. I'm sure it is in some places. I keep trying to find some real stories or instances of it. There was a guy that wrote a book, and there was a movie about it that happened here in Arkansas. There's still so many things to worry about. And when we're not making laws in the legislature, we're making laws telling cities that they can't make non-discrimination ordinance, that cities and counties can't do those things. So not only are we controlling state laws, but we're also trying to control those city laws. One of the reasons I'm on city county local committee is to try to help stop some of that stuff.
Do you see any, or predict maybe a better word, what kinds of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation might be upcoming in the 25 general session? Do you have any idea or any thoughts about what might be coming down the pipeline?
We've got another special session coming up probably in about a week. And once that's over, I've got a few conferences this summer, but what I've got to start doing right now is doing some research. I've got a list of things I'm interested in doing bills for. So I've got to start getting those, researching those, getting them written, and start shopping those around to people, talking to people about them before we get to January of next year. But at the same time, I'm also going to be looking at states that have just been having their sessions, their regular sessions, because we are a copycat state in a lot of ways. Every once in a while, we do something first. But if you'll notice, even though we might do it first, the news doesn't talk about us as much. They talk about Texas and Florida and Georgia or Idaho or wherever. It seems like we get left out of the conversation a lot. But I'll start researching those sessions and start getting a list, because like I said, there's always more to do. All of the things that have already been done could be added on to in a lot of ways. Everything can get tougher. But I don't know about specific things right now, because really this last session, like we did the Don't Say Gay, as far as in schools, you can't, learn about any of that kind of stuff or talk about it. kind of like the critical race theory stuff, trying to keep all of that stuff out. So I don't have any specific instances right now, but that's what I start on as soon as I'm done with this next special session.
I guess that is coming up in about 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you for all that you do also.
Oh, well,
if no one tells you that.
No, we get a lot of support, and that's, we had our Democratic convention this past weekend, and it's one of the things I've tried to say to people is thank you for the support. We do. We all feel like we're in the gap right now. One of these days, everything kind of turned in 2012. And if we feel like this is our time to stay in this gap and fight, I think things will go so extreme that reasonable Arkansans are going to say, okay, I did not sign up for this kind of extreme or this kind of state. And I think that the pendulum will swing back. And if we can just stand in this gap and stop what we can, speak out against what we can't, and keep working, to change those kinds of things until we can turn it. And I keep telling the Republicans, I don't care. We don't need to get back 90 Democrats, 10 Republicans. Can we break the super majority? I mean, that would be something. But if we could get 30-70, if we could get 40-60, all of our laws would be so much better, because we would have to work together. We would have to compromise. We would probably get better laws for all of our people. And a lot of this crazy extreme stuff would go away in a lot of ways, because it just couldn't happen at that point. But right now, I think it's dangerous when you have this kind of a super majority. I think it's really dangerous because you can truly do anything you set your mind to. And if you let that really extreme part of that majority take over, that's when it's really dangerous, because you start to do things that even the moderate Republicans, they don't want to do it, but they have to, because those are the really loud people that are going to get you an opponent and get you beat and get everybody, ginned up and everything. So I if we could just inch closer, I think things would be so much better. And I think some of them agree with that too. Some of them aren't very happy either. They're really not. And in their faction, in their 82, there's about 3 different factions. There were 2, kind of an extreme one and a moderate one. And after this last cycle, there's a middle one now. And the extreme is fighting for them, and then the moderates are fighting for them. So it's, it's constant push-pull against all of that. So, and I've heard, I don't know. I think it can be hard either way.
Yeah, I don't think super majorities on any side of the aisle are good.
No.
It could just as easily be, the pendulum could swing the other way, and it would be just as bad in a lot of ways.
On the bright side, though, there is a lot of hope in Arkansas. Like, people are fighting for the good. They're fighting the good fight, and that's good. And I was wondering if you just had any thoughts on how people who do see this and do think it's bad and do want to help, how can they push back against stuff like this?
Yeah, one of the things, especially this is Pride Month, so I think one of the great things that's happening now, we used to have Pride here in Little Rock, and they had a Pride in Northwest Arkansas, and that's pretty much it. Now there are Pride celebrations all over the state. There was one just in Jonesboro that had a huge crowd. There's one in Batesville. They have one over in Saline County. There's a good one in Hot Springs. They're all over the place now, in some really unexpected places that you wouldn't think. And so I think that's a good thing. That's also exposure for people and their families. And these are just always such fun celebrations and everything that are portrayed, as naked people walking around or something. And that's just not true. That's not what's happening. So I think that's something that's really hopeful. And I think that's something for us to look at and help kind of grow an equality movement. Pride has always been that fight that has started so much good, and that has really spread. I think it could get worse before it gets better, but I also think that you guys, this next generation, this generation that's living through all of this and looking at all of us, maybe, and what in the world, are you even thinking? I still think that generationally, we're going to continue, things are going to continue to change, but y'all know as well as I do that that there are still parents bringing up their kids to hate in certain segments of our country and of our state. But I think that will be overcome one of these days by, a more open-minded, accepting society. I mean, I'm always optimistic and I'm always hopeful. I'm optimistic about our legislature. There are some people in there that I have much more in common with than I have different. And if I could just get more help, instead of being a caucus of one, if I could be a caucus of 2 or 3, that would be amazing, because then that also, I mean, if we could have, a male member of the LGBTQ community or a trans member, I mean, that would be amazing, because that's just more exposure for everybody else. We're all Arkansans. We're all much more alike. We have more of the same experiences than we have different. And I think we can all learn to coexist together. So I'm always going to remain hopeful that people will try to do the right thing and the best thing. I think you started out with being in a dark place, and that's true for so many in our community. But I think that good people going to rallies, coming up to the Capitol to testify, going to pride marches, I think all of these things do make a difference.
Man, what a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Representative, for your time today.
Thank you guys for the invitation. I loved it.
Happy Pride Month. Can we expect to see you
Yeah.
in rainbow across the state?
I go as much as I can. Northwest Arkansas Pride is amazing. Have y'all been there?
I haven't. We went to
It'll be my
Soma,
first
but
time this year.
You guys, the first time I went to it, I was either in tears or had chills. It was amazing, totally amazing. And of course, we had one at Soma and South on Main here in Little Rock, but I was out of town. I didn't get to go to that. I've been to the Batesville one. I've been to the Saline County one. I missed Jonesboro because I was out of state last week, but I try to go to as many of them as I can, especially these smaller ones, that need the support and everything. But anyway, it's really amazing. Then of course in Little Rock in October we'll have another one. They have Central Arkansas Pride does that, but yeah, it's fun.
Having 2 a year is really great. We went to the Central Arkansas Pride last year, and it was such a pleasure.
Yeah,
Just so joyful. Everyone's just having a good time.
Yeah, I agree. The one in Batesville has been going for several years, and it's really good too. And it's just you just don't expect it, but you walk up there and it's they've got their street blocked and everything. There's a lot of people there. Representative Mary Bentley said somebody said their family went up there and there were naked people. That's not true. I was there. It's just not true.
Representative Bentley says lots of things. She says lots
She
of
does,
things.
and she says it real fast. She talks real fast too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, she does.
Yeah,
well-
I've been considering walking up to her lately and just say, could you just tell me what hateful bills you're going to run so I can just start getting ready for them? I know they're coming. Could you just give me like a preview? And just to see how she would react,
She might give them to you, she might say, all right, sure, here you go.
Yeah. She probably would. I mean, she's always nice. Everybody's nice. My experience being a teacher and a coach, especially across the state, has really helped me in the legislature, especially with the men. And then when I bought a truck, all the men love the truck. So that's something we can talk about. So, I mean, like I said, people say, how can you stand those people? There's only a couple that I really can't stand. The rest of them, I'm okay. It's their votes. I don't think a lot of them, like I said, care that much about some of this stuff. They're just trying to stay out of trouble with the governor, stay out of trouble with their party, try to get reelected. Which is shameful.
Well, thank you again for your time. And I know you have to run in a couple minutes, so we'll let
Thanks.
you go.
And thanks for all the work. Thanks for everything you guys do. Really appreciate it. This was
Thank
fun.
you so much.
Yeah, this
All
is
right.
great.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to our weekly roundup. We hope to do more with these soon, and we hope y'all keep coming back to listen. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts at 4ARPeople on almost everything and at 4ARPeople1 on Twitter.